Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Transform You Live show. That's the U with a letter U. Today we're diving deep with a true legend in the world of personal and professional growth, Mr. Dennis J. Henson. Now, you might know Dennis as the founder and president of Vanguard Marketing and Investments, Inc., a powerhouse in the real estate and personal development industries. But there's so much more to this man than just success, and we're going to find out today. Dennis has a unique ability. That ability is to inspire and empower individuals to achieve their full potential. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have him on the show because we're all about that.
And we'll be right back. Come with me, let's rap. Take a trip and we back. And we'll be right back. I stand for what you stand for. Hey, I get on the mic and I transform. Follow me on this world tour. The asteroid that you can't avoid. Follow me.
So welcome to the show, Dennis. It's an absolute honor to have you here, sir.
Well, thank you, Marcus. I really appreciate you having me here today.
Indeed, my friend. So, been following your work since I've been introduced to you, and I'm constantly inspired by your message. You build an incredible empower. That's more importantly, outside of that, is that you have helped countless individuals unlock their inner greatness. What truly sets you apart, in my opinion, is like your unwavering focus on personal growth and continuous learning. I would like for you to share a bit about your own journey of self-discovery and how it has shaped your philosophy for what we know of now.
Well, Marcus, I went to school to become a band director. I have a music degree and a master's degree in music, and I was a band director a number of years ago. And I was teaching high school, and I thought, I could just become a college band director. That would be much better. The students are much more attentive and they work harder and they're just better. I mean, they're college students and not high school students, and you don't have to deal with parents. So I worked my way to the position where I was contacted by the University of Georgia Tech, and they asked me to become their band director. And I moved to Georgia to take that position. I moved to Atlanta. And I was staying with a friend, and he got a phone call from a company, and they asked if I was there. My mother had told them where I was. And they said, well, we want to fly you to Memphis and buy you a steak and give you a cigar. They promised me all kinds of things and said, we want to offer you a position. I said, well, I'm not really interested. I've got my dream position. I'm going to be a college band director. And they said, well, let us send you a round-trip ticket. Well, this was in the early 70s, and people my age didn't get to fly much. I mean, it was a big deal to get a round-trip ticket. So I said, sure, I'll come up there and you buy me a steak. And I went up there, and they offered me 20 times what Georgia Tech was offering me. And I was just a young kid, and I had never had any money. And so I took the job. And so once I took it, they gave me 3 books. It was a sales position, and they gave me Think and Grow Rich, Success, the Glenn Bland Method, and The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Well, Marcus, after I read those books, I was a different person. I mean, I was on fire. You couldn't hold me down. I couldn't wait to get out there and get up in the morning and go meet somebody and make a presentation. And I made so much money that first year, and I was so excited that I realized at that time, books can change your life. If you read it's a compact of years of study and learning, all compacted and put in one place. And then when you take it in, it explodes and it gives you this euphoria. It makes you so excited, you just want to get out. So after that, I thought, I need more books. I want to feel like this again. Well, back in the 70s, there wasn't an internet. There wasn't a Google. If you wanted to find something, you actually had to talk with other people. You had to get on the phone. And so it was a struggle to find the next book. It was almost like a drug. You take it and then it It drug me out of bed every morning. It drug me in front of all the people to make presentation. But, I thought, well, I'm going to keep a list of the books that really work, because a lot of the books I read didn't do that. They were good and I learned a lot, but I wanted the books that really grabbed me and shook me and inspired me. So I started keeping a list in 1975. Well, this is almost 2025. This is like 50 years later, and I've been keeping that list for 50 years. So in the back of my book, Real Impact Daily Inspiration, you'll find that list prioritized. And it's like 100, maybe more than 100 books, so that once you finish this book, if you want more, if you want to get more enthusiasm, or I call it euphoria, you can just read this one book right after the other, and it will keep you motivated and inspired. And that's just one small section of the book. But the way the book came about is I moved to Texas 30 years ago, and I started investing in real estate. So I was very successful, but there wasn't a real estate group in Arlington, Texas. There was one in Fort Worth, there was one in Dallas, but the Metroplex is big. So to drive to Dallas, and traffic could be an hour and a half. If there's no traffic, it's 45 minutes to an hour. Same way with Fort Worth. Fort Worth is so long, so big, and I live down in the southern part, that you can drive 30 minutes and still be in Fort Worth. I mean, it's a big place. So anyway,
it's vast.
I thought I'll start a group. I'll start a group in Arlington. So I did. I started the AREA, the Arlington Real Estate Association of Investors. And I thought, well, I've got this big group. If I teach them, I'll be better. So I started putting on what I called elite classes. I called them short sales, subject to, and all the advanced techniques. So one of the members came up to me and said, "Dennis, I'm about to retire." His name was Mike. He said, "I'm about to retire, and in 3 weeks, I'm going to let you teach me what you do." And I said, "Well, Mike, I don't have time. I'm real estate. I'm having too much success with my real estate. I don't have time to teach you." And he said, "Well, that's okay. I'll pay you." And I said, "No, I don't want to do that." He said, "Well, let me take you out to lunch and we'll discuss." I told Norma right before we left. Norma's my wife. I said, "I'm going to go see Mike Chase, and I'm going to tell him I'm not going to teach him." So we went out and ate, and after we ate, he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a checkbook and he handed it to me. And he said, "Here, you fill out the amount." And I thought, well, this will fix that. I'm going to put an amount on there that there's no way he's ever going to pay me. And if he does, it'll be worth away from my real estate to do it. He didn't even look at, he tore the check out, signed it, never looked at the amount, and he handed it to me. That's when I started teaching. So I thought, my gosh, if I'm going to teach these people, I better have a very powerful training course. So I put together what I thought was something that would really help people along, and it did. My students were so successful. It was phenomenal. They were more successful than me. Because of that, I got invited to speak at a lot of conventions in different places. And I was on a podcast one day, and the host said, "Why are your students so successful?" And I said, "Well, I teach them to change their habits. If they can form success habits, it doesn't matter if it's real estate or whatever, if they can form success habits, they'll become successful." And then he said, "Well, Dennis, what is the one most important habit?" I thought for a second, and I said, "Form the habit of reading something positive every day that will move you towards your goal." So after the podcast was over, I thought, that was the right answer. Wouldn't it be great if there were some kind of a tool, an app or a book or something to help people form that habit? And then it was almost like a jarring experience. I mean, hit me. I thought, I can do that. I've been collecting quotes, poems, and success stories for 50 years, not to mention the books. All I've got to do is just put them in a book. It'll take a couple of months and I'll have the book and I can give that to my students and maybe I can help other people. 5 years later, the book was published. I worked on that book for 5 years, and that was pretty much my, the thing I spent most of my mind and energy on was doing the book. And here's the book. And it's designed in such a way so that anybody can form the habit of reading every day really easily because everybody's busy. You're busy. When we started this podcast, you said, I just finished another podcast and I'm rushing to get to this one. You probably got something else in your whole day. Well, everybody's like that. I mean, think, I don't have time to start a new habit. And their internal engine is saying, we don't want to do anything new. Your subconscious don't want to add anything. So it's got to really be easy for people to form it. So let's just say that you came home one night, you've been working all day and you were just exhausted and you hit the bed and you thought, I didn't do my reading habit. Well, you can turn to the back of this book to quotes. And some of the quotes are 5 words. You can read 5 words and they're very motivational. And you go to sleep thinking about something very helpful to you. Well, let's say you're at the airport, you have an hour. Well, there's some long stories in here that would take longer to read. And then there's short stories. And let's say that between events, you have 5 minutes, we can read a poem. So whatever time slot you have, let's say you had 3 hours to read. We go to the back of this book with those books I listed in the back, and you keep a companion book with this, and you can read for 2 or 3 hours on the companion book. So I've made something that's not normally easy to do extremely simple. But Marcus, what's wonderful about this is it's life-changing. In the front of the book, I had my students write testimonials. So there's testimonial after testimonial after testimonial of the students saying, if you do what this guy says, it's amazing what will happen to you. Well, the things I say are not special. They're just laws of nature. If you follow the laws of nature and you form success habits, you can no more fail than water can run uphill. That's a quote that's in the book from one of my mentors. Yeah. His name is Tom Hendricks. He's one of the most respected businessmen in the state of Tennessee, and he got me started in the business world. And that was in his manual, and I love that quote. If you follow the laws of nature, you can't fail no more than water can run uphill. So anyway, long answer. That answered your question.
Mr. Dennis, sir, that's powerful. Napoleon Hill was like one of the first books I was introduced to as well, and very amazing read, and it will incite some things inside of you that you didn't know was inside of you. And when you talk about being able to pivot from what you were doing after someone gave you a blank check and you say write it out, and now it has snowballed into what we know now as your book, the real impact, daily inspiration. You're helping many people countless people. And I love how you emphasize the importance of lifelong learning. That's essentially what it is, lifelong learning. We never should stop. And that's one of the important habits. And one thing about your book, you talk about the profound impact of daily reading. It is profound, but it's not new technology. Can you elaborate on that and why is daily reading such a crucial habit for personal and professional growth? You touched on it a bit, but I'd like for you to kind of dive deeper into that.
Well, it's kind of like the rudder on a ship. If you got on a boat or a ship and it didn't have a rudder, where would the ship go? It would just go and you wouldn't ever end up anywhere. But using the system that's in this book, the first thing you have to do is get your mind right, and you have to decide, where is it that I'm going? What do I want to do? What's my dream? What's my burning desire? And let's say you want to become an attorney, Like in the book, Abraham Lincoln decided, I want to become an attorney, and the way he did that is by reading books. So if you wanted to become an attorney and you form the habit of reading about the law every day, well, let me quote Zig Ziglar here. Zig Ziglar says, little by little, a little becomes a lot. If you just read 20 pages of a 200-page book for a year, you will have read 20 books. That's 19 more than the average person. That will set you apart. Now, Zig Ziglar is a pretty smart fellow. You know, I used to speak all over the country and in other countries, and one of the things I always asked the audience was, how many people here have heard of Zig Ziglar? Well, every hand would go up, even in other countries. I mean, the guy was well known. He passed away a couple of years ago. His organization is still moving along and helping a lot of people. Jim Rohn once said, find out what rich people do and do that. Well, Zig Ziglar said, I read 3 hours every day. 3 hours every day of his life. My goodness. No wonder he was so smart. No wonder so many people knew him. Well, emulate him. If you want to become successful, emulate those successful people. And the book is full of successful people. In fact, in the back of the book, it says, if you're through reading all of the poems, quotes, and if you're through reading all the suggested books, here's a list of things, biographies of people that you can read about, and here's some different areas of life that you need to know about. So you can take this book and read for your entire life. You'll never finish reading what this suggests. And it's all positive. It's okay to read a novel. That's for entertainment. But that's not what this is about. What this is about is you read something that motivates you and moves you toward your goal. Now, a lot of people will think, well, it would really be nice if I could do this, but I don't have the money, I don't have the connections, I don't have the education, I don't.
Yeah.
And they won't do, as long as they think that way, they're never going to achieve anything that's going to make much difference. But if they change their mindset and they say, well, I have this desire to do this, and I'm willing to do something about it every single day until I get there. That's powerful. Marcus, that will change someone's life. So when people came to me and wanted me to teach them real estate, I would ask them, on the first lesson, I said, well, what do you do? And they'll say, well, I'm a teacher, or they'll say all these other things. And I'll say, no, that's not what you do. They say, what? I say, you're a real estate investor. And so when people ask you what you do, you say, I'm a real estate investor. You can also tell them you do the other things. But the first person you have to convince that you're a doctor or a lawyer or a real estate investor or a teacher or whatever is yourself. And if you're telling everybody, if you're hearing yourself tell everybody that you're something else, you'll always be that something else. The first thing you got to do is get your mind right. I'm writing another book called The 7 Secrets of Success. And Marcus, the first secret of success is you have to get your mind right. You have to believe that what you're trying to accomplish is possible and that you're going to accomplish it. And if you don't, well, you probably won't. Henry Ford once said, if a fellow believes he can do a thing, he's probably right. But if a fellow believes he can't do a thing, he's probably right. So your mind, I was watching something on Instagram this morning before I came to work, where it was talking about the study of particles, and just the thinking about the particle changes its direction. Just you thinking, you observing it changes the direction. So your mind is much more powerful than you would ever imagine. You have no idea how infinitely powerful it is, And so I heard another quote the other day I liked. It said, when a man started to move a mountain from here to here, he started with a small stone. So you just start small and you move a stone at a time, and then you move bigger ones and you get better equipment. And before long, the mountain that was here is moved over here. And we see that all the time. They're working on they're constructing I-20 out here, and they're literally moving mountains to put 4, 6, 8-lane highways near my house. But the amount of ground and dirt that they're moving is just, it's amazing. And then you think, what kind of engineers were able to figure all this out, that you move this traffic to here until you get this built, and then you open this back up. It takes a great deal of mind work, but people have it. Everyone has it.
Yeah.
But few people use it or know how to use it. And this is the first step. Forming this habit is the first step in literally changing your life and getting whatever you want out of life.
And that last part kind of reminds me of, like, saying I always, say to myself, when I'm in front of something that's difficult, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? You can't eat an elephant whole. You got to eat a little bit at a time.
That's right. That's right.
So I absolutely love that. I love your mindset. I love the emphasis on, like, the first step is to change your mind. It's such a simple yet profound practice. And I think it resonates deeply with our audience and those who are always seeking ways to improve themselves. I think that's the first way to start. I like to shift gears a bit. In today's fast-paced world, it can be very challenging to maintain focus and stay motivated. I know I got ADHD. Sometimes I got too many tabs open and I'm jumping from tab to tab. But what are some practical strategies you recommend for cultivating mental clarity and staying on track with our goals?
Well, the first thing you have to do is have a goal. You can have as many as you want, but then you have to prioritize them. And if you know what your goals are, and you have the habit of reading something positive that moves you toward your goal every day, well, that's a big first step. Many people haven't really sat down and thought, here's what I would really like to do. They may work for someone else, which is okay if they're happy doing that. Happiness is a good goal. Being happy and content in life, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe they get up in the morning and they get ready and have breakfast, they go to work, then they come home and they watch TV and they go to bed. And that's what they do. And that's all they do. And if that makes them happy and they're content and they don't want to change the world, that's up to them. But there are people out there who are given, it's a gift. They're given desires. Where do those desires come from? Well, I like to say they come from God. I think they're gifts from God. God gives you this gift. You want to do this. But you say, well, you don't accept the gift. Well, it's up to you. You got free will. You don't have to accept the gift. For example, in the book, it talks about Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln only had less than a first grade education. Did you know that? His parents were illiterate. They were extremely poor. I mean, you talk about poor today. Well, the people have food, they have shelter, they have water, they have everything they need. But Lincoln didn't have any of that. He lived in a lean-to with a dirt floor. There wasn't even walls all the way around. He had to get water, he had to walk 2 miles and carry the water back through the woods where there were bears and mountain lions. I mean, the poor fellow had it rough. And he had a hard time throughout his life. But at one time in his life, he had joined a debate club, and he was so good at debating, the members of the club convinced him to go into politics and run for one of the state offices. And he did, but he thought, well, I don't have the education I need. So he went to school teacher in that area. All the towns in that time didn't have schools, but he found a school teacher who helped him with his grammar and helped him with his education. And so he thought, well, if I'm going to be in politics, I need to know something about the law. Well, a miracle happened. He was running a general store, and someone came by with an old barrel, and he purchased the barrel. Well, inside the barrel were some law books. He devoured those, and he thought, oh, this is so good. So then he started visiting the courthouse and sitting in on trials. And when he found himself in that atmosphere, he thought, I'm home. This is what I need to do. And so he determined right then, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Now, listen, I'm going to do whatever it takes to become an attorney. He didn't even have a first grade education. He barely spoke English. This was Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest orators who ever lived. And he said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to become an attorney, which wasn't an easy task. And he did it. He passed the bar, and he became one of the most respected, probably the second most respected attorney in the whole state of Illinois, and eventually became the president of the United States. Now, that's what can happen when you decide, I'm going to do this, whatever it takes. And not many people have experienced that. I know I've experienced it several times, but it's a wonderful feeling because then you know this is where I'm going and I'm going to go find out what's necessary and I'm going to do it and I'm going to get there. That's a really great feeling. You don't get that feeling just by living a mundane life. You only get it when you're given this gift, you accept it, and then you move in that direction.
That's amazing stuff. And I thank you for giving us a little history lesson on Abraham Lincoln, which, truly one of the best presidents, from our political history and United States history. Mr. Dennis, speaking of having one of the best on the show right now, we got one of the best minds and brilliant minds of our time and thought leaders. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with more from Mr. Dennis J. Henson after a quick word from our sponsor. Unlock your skin's potential with Geologic Skin Clear. Whether you're tackling acne, slowing down aging, brightening those under-eye circles, or balancing oily and dry skin, Geologic has you covered. And here's some great news for our listeners. Enjoy an exclusive 15% discount on your purchase by using the link that's down below. You will be able to elevate your skincare game today by having that exclusive 15% off. Let's get to it. Okay, welcome back, everyone, to the Transform You Live show. We're here with the incredible Dennis J. Henson. Now, Dennis, sir, you touched upon the importance of, in my opinion, it's faith and spirituality in your personal and professional life, and I think when you do set your mind to do something, there's something incredible that happens within our universe that bring things to its forefront, bring things into better perspective as you move forward, you get rewarded for it. And as you were talking, it made me think about the town that my kids used to live in Abilene. When you were discussing those long roads, there are long roads that lead from Abilene, especially when you're going back to Dallas. So it was not Austin. It was Dallas that I flew into to go down to Abilene to get my kids. And you got to keep moving forward. I think that's the most important thing. And when we talk about these principles that you are expounding in very simple terms and in ways we can understand, how do we integrate these principles into leadership styles? And how do you believe that they can empower other leaders to achieve greater things?
The way to integrate them is to, first of all, determine what they are. Like you need to learn what the 7 secrets of success are, and then you determine, I know one of the first books I read, I mentioned before, was The Greatest Salesman in the World. And in the back of The Greatest Salesman in the World, there are these scrolls. The greatest salesman bestowed those scrolls, and then he lived by them for the rest of his life. Well, I read those in mid-1970s, and I determined at that time that I was going to live by those scrolls. So what I suggest is, that book is listed in here. If you take this book and you start reading the books in the back, you're going to get to that one pretty fast because it's very close to the top. So I suggest that you get that book and make it a companion to this one and read those scrolls and adopt them into your life. And one of those scrolls that I really live by says, I will form good habits and become their slave. Because Marcus, we're all slaves of habit. I don't even know you, but I can tell every morning when you get up, you go do the same thing. You get out of the bed and then you go do the same thing. It may be brush your teeth, maybe go to the bathroom, it may be comb your hair. I don't know what it is, but I know this. It's the same thing every day because you are your habits. Now, if you can make those habits something that leads you toward whatever it is you want, a lot of money. One of the things that I wanted desperately in my life was I wanted to have a beautiful, sweet, wonderful wife who supported me. Now, I didn't have the looks to get there, or, I didn't have necessarily all the things that a beautiful woman would want, but I was at a dance one night and a young girl came up to me and said, would you dance with me and my friend? And I said, well, sure. Who's your friend? And when I saw her friend, that was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, I almost fell over. And so we spent the rest of the night dancing together. And the whole time I was telling myself, why are you wasting your time with this young, beautiful girl? She will not have any interest in you. But I determined this is who I want. And a year later, we were married. So it's amazing what making up your mind can do for you and forming the habit of moving in a little bit in that direction day after day. And I may be repeating myself, but what I'm saying is very important. It's so important that I want to give your readers something, your listeners something, if you don't mind.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. If everyone will just go to realimpactbook.com, that's my book's website. I hope you'll read it and, click on the links. But if you go down to the very bottom, the end of the last page, several pages long, where it says podcast attendees, if you'll just fill out the information, click on that, fill out the information. It will not put you on a mailing list. It's just going to automatically send you the ebook for free. No charge, no strings attached. Now, if you want to be on a mailing list, there's a link there that says put me on it, but you don't have to do that. The mailing list is just telling you, well, I got another book coming out if you want to look at it. So there's no spamming or anything like that involved. But why would I give my books for free? Because it's not about money. If I help enough people, Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. So I want to get the book out and I want it to help a lot of people. I'm 76, 30 years from now, I won't be here, but the book will. And I'll still be telling people wonderful things about changing their life after I'm gone. Just like Napoleon Hill. You talked about Napoleon Hill. He's been dead for 50 years, but he's still helping people form successful businesses and changing their lives. Well, that's wonderful. And I'm happy for it. And I want to be like him. I want people 50, 100 years from now to say, that book really helped me. I was able to do things that I didn't even realize I could do just because of real impact. So if you get the free book and you read it, I know what you're going to do. You're going to say, oh, what a gift for a graduate. I know this young person, maybe it's a granddaughter or a cousin or your sister's daughter, whatever, or son. This book would change their life. And they're graduating from high school or college. And then the stories are so familiar. Maybe you want to give it to someone in a nursing home or your grandparents because they'll know the people in the stories and they'll like the stories. The book is entertaining. It's not a motivational book. It's a fun read. It's a mystery book. It's a book of stories. Look, I know the stories are wonderful because the stories were wonderful before I put them in the book. They were just good stories. I looked for great stories, so I couldn't miss. And when I started compiling the book, I had over 100 stories. So that's too many. So I narrowed them down. And if the story didn't evoke an emotional response, I didn't put it in the book. So you're talking about some really powerful stories that they'll motivate you, they'll kick you in the butt, you'll experience euphoria, you'll want to get out and do stuff you've never done before, and you'll want to share that with other people. And that's my hope that you'll give it to people that it can really have an impact on their life.
Well, that's very moving, and I really appreciate that. I think my audience is going to really appreciate, getting an early Christmas gift. This is great. I'm excited for it myself. I'm going to put my name on that list so that I'll stay tuned. And me personally, I'm old school. I like to get a hard copy book of everything. I'm going to definitely reach out and give you a hard copy right after this. So, very insightful stuff, truly insightful. I can't stress it enough. It's a powerful reminder that leadership comes from a place of service and integrity. Now let's talk about overcoming challenges. I definitely want to touch on that. We all face obstacles on our journey. I have faced a lot in my life. And what advice would you give to aspiring leaders who are struggling with self-doubt or facing setbacks in their life?
Well, okay. If someone's facing a setback, I've faced a number of setbacks in my life over and over and over again. And the thing that pulled me out was I went and found a poem or a quote or an inspirational story, and that helped. And when it did help, then I captured it and put it in the book. I met Jim Rohn 50 years ago, before he was the famous Jim Rohn. He passed away a couple of years ago, but I watched him go from just someone that I knew and respected to someone that was respected by the entire business world and motivational world. He was a wonderful speaker and a wonderful person. But one of the things Jim said was, you should journal, you should write everything down. And so as the years passed and I experienced problems, and I was able to pull myself out of those problems by reading or doing or whatever, or refocusing, I made notes of that, and those things are all in the book. There's a story in here about Og Mandino. Og Mandino was the author of Real Impact. Not really, the greatest salesman in the world. At one point in his life, he considered suicide. He came this close to taking his own life because his life had deteriorated to the point where he didn't think it was worth living anymore. He was living on the sidewalk in the snow. He didn't have a home, and he was broke. So right after he chose not to commit suicide, he saw a sign that said public library. And he thought, well, I bet it's warm in there and anybody can go in. So he went in the library, and he remembered when he was a little boy, his mother used to take him to the library. So he started looking around, and he found himself in front of the self-help section. He pulled down 2 or 3 books and sat down at the table. And from that point on, his life was totally changed. He went in and he started reading every day, and eventually became an extremely successful author. He's still selling his book is selling about 600,000 copies a month. And
Wow.
He's been dead for 45, 50 years. So he's still helping people. What if he moved in a different direction? What if he didn't go into that library? What if he didn't take that book down? Just think what a loss it would have been for humanity. So what about you? What are you reading? What's your plan? Don't you want to make a life-changing decision of doing something really simple by changing one habit with a tool? It's almost like my father was a carpenter. If he'd gone to work without a hammer, would he have gotten much done? No, he needed the hammer to drive the nail to make the house. It's a simple little tool. This is a simple little tool that can change and build you a brand new life of whatever it is that God gave you that you have a desire to do. And, I can't even imagine what people will have desires to do, but, maybe you want to work for NASA. I don't know. Whatever it is, you can do it, but you have to take a step at a time. And this is a great first step because it's your tool. It's like the keys to the car.
I love it. Well, this has been an absolutely enlightening conversation, Mr. Dennis, sir. And I think you're way too humble when you say like you're not a good looking guy, respectfully. And I learned so much from you today, a lot. And before we wrap up, what's the single most important takeaway you'd like listeners to leave with after this episode? And feel free to like reiterate what that website is too for us to go after this.
Well, realimpactbook.com is the website. You can also go to Amazon and type in Dennis J. Henson and the book will come up, or you can type in Real Impact Daily Inspiration. But the thing I'd like to leave with you is this. I hope you'll go to the website and get the free ebook and just read the introduction and how to use the book. And then I want you to think about, who could this help? Do I know someone that's experiencing difficulties? Maybe they're having problems with their business, or maybe they're having problems in life, or maybe they just graduated from high school and they don't know what they want to do, or college, or they lost their job. Who would this help? And then, the book comes in all kinds of formats. It's in soft cover, hardcover, audiobook, and ebook. I mean, it's in your budget. And several times a year, you can get it for a very small price. I actually think the soft cover right now is half price. So, but anyway, it's a very affordable gift, but it's a life-changing gift. If you really care about somebody and you want to help them, this is a gift that will sincerely do that. And if you just like to read, you can just pick this book up and read it. It's not intended to be done that way. You're supposed to just read it and contemplate a little bit at a time, but it's a fun read. The stories in there will just melt your heart. The people had so many struggles, people that and you'll think, wow, had no idea they went through such a hard time, and now they're so famous and so successful. So I challenge you to go and get it, pass it along to other people. And Marcus, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you having me on. I hope you'll consider having me back.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dennis, for sharing your wisdom and inspiring all of us to live a life of purpose and impact. And it's been an absolutely pleasure for myself, having you on the Transform You Live show today. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, boys and girls, you can connect with Dennis J. Henson by, going to that website he mentioned. I'm going to have that in the episode description for you guys to be able to be a part of, grabbing up that ebook, which hopefully will motivate you to get, a hard copy, just like I'm very interested in the hard copy myself. Actually thinking about getting these for Christmas gifts for my 3 oldest children who, are, I want to continue to inspire them, and for more inspiring content, interviews like this, be sure to subscribe to the Transform You Live show on all podcast platforms. And remember, until next time, we want to continue to live a life of transformation. This is Marcus Hart signing off. Peace and many blessings.
I stand for what you stand for. I'm at your door like the landlord. I can see the future, yeah, I fast forward. I get on the mic and I transform. Follow me, I'm in rare form. Follow me on this world tour. The asteroid that you can't avoid.